Hello, my name is Martha Burgess Novak, and this show is Real Talk with Martha Burgess Novak. We're glad to have you with us today. We're going to talk about friendship and what it takes to be a friend, how to sustain them through the years, how to even meet people for the first time, and to increase your network of good and solid friends. We also have a caller who is a 267 exchange that I'll go to in just a moment. Right now, why don't we do a prayer to get us all on the same page? Hello, Lisa. To launch us all off on the right foot. Those of you on Blog Talk Radio, and we have a considerable audience, those of you there, when you hear me acknowledging people, it's always when people are saying hi on Facebook Live. We are broadcasting this on Facebook Live, on the page Martha Burgess Novak as well. Let's do a prayer. We're going to then launch into everything, all right? So glad that you're with us. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world. We thank you so much as we open ourselves to this information, that we may use it to our highest and best good. We thank you so much, dear God, as we open our hearts to change and growth and the opportunity that is inherent in change and growth. We now ask that we say with all humbleness that we know nothing. For it is you through us and through all things that knows it all. Take the clouds from our sight, dear God, that we may see what you're asking us to do in all clarity, in all truth, in all love, and give us the courage to do it. We thank you so much, dear God. We say this prayer now in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show. And so it is. Amen. I love you too, Lisa, by the way. Let's go to our caller and see if this will lead us into a great show. Hello. I'm talking to a 267 exchange. To whom am I speaking? Is there someone there? Well, I don't see that you have hung up, so I'm going to leave that line open, and if there is something that you would like to say to us, by all means, chime in there. All right. You know, we've all heard, I'm going to go right into our show. Oh, hello, Kat. Good morning, darling. Love to you, too. We have such a nice little network, don't we, of people? I just love speaking with all of you and connecting. All right, let's go into what we're going to talk about today. You know, we've all heard that old adage, to be a friend, to make a friend, be a friend. I think that's too general. It's basically, certainly, got a bit of truth in it, but we need to talk a little more about what a good friend is. I think of various philosophies that we have on friendship. I have a girlfriend that is, I love dearly. She's very controlling like her mother, and she doesn't realize it. This is certainly not, hello, darling, this is certainly not a criticism. It's just the way it is, and she's not a client of mine, so it's fine. But she inherited her mother's trait to be very controlling. So her idea of a friendship based on that energy is that you are with her all the time, that you do things with her constantly, that you go to the movies and you do the things that she likes to do. I have a different philosophy of friendship, and that is no matter how much time and space passes between any of us, and I always hope it's not too long, but even if it is, and there have been friendships that have been that long. My own husband I didn't see for 30 years or more, but he was not my husband at the time, I should say. I think it's so marvelous for us to be able to pick up where we left off. Not that people don't grow. We should all grow and change. But how wonderful when we find someone again who has grown and changed the same way we have, or if not the same way we have, has developed themselves and their own interest in such a way that we can have a spectacular friendship at that time. Now, that said about the different philosophies, I urge you to think about your own philosophy of friendship. What does it take to be your friend? What does it take to be the friend of other people? Now, what I'd like to do, because this is the way we always start out with the big picture, don't we, on this show? And then we work ourselves down to some little tips that might make social interactions for you easier. So I have a new phone and it's whistling at me. How exciting. So let's talk about some of these broader points, and then we'll go into some specifics, all right? You know, I think a compliment goes a long way. Now, next week we're going to talk about love languages and actually how to use them, because I think it's marvelous that this is, by the way, not my system. This is somebody else's system. But I think it needs a little translation about how to use it in your relationship. So, if you will, these two shows more or less go together. Words are very important to me. Words are certainly my love language. This is not true for everybody else in the world. So when I say a compliment goes a long way, what I want to say is we must be very sincere. We must open our minds to the fact that there's something to appreciate about everyone. And I think a very loving thing to do, at least for people that like words, like I do, a very loving thing to do is to find that thing that they may have taken time to put together for an occasion and to compliment them. I think that's a lovely thing, that kind of acknowledgement. Now, the reason I'm saying this about the love languages is that may mean more to me than it will be to somebody else who would rather be patted on the arm or touched, or any of the other love languages, right? So we're going to talk about that next week. It's going to be a great show, I think. But as you are meeting people, I want to say that there are some of us in the world that very much like words. A simple acknowledgement that there is something to admire about that person, or you appreciate the color or the texture or what they've just said. I think that's a lovely thing. You know, I try to do that in the most sincere way. I try to do that when I am out in public. I want to recognize people at the grocery store, anywhere, quite frankly, that if they're wearing something, if they're doing something that I think is very lovely, I will always stop and acknowledge that. I don't know these people's names. They don't know mine. I'm not trying to get anything out of anything. I just want to say, I see that, and that's lovely. So I want you all to not feel vulnerable doing that. I think it's a good thing to see the things that please you in the world and to acknowledge them. I think there's something very spiritual about that. We often see the things that aren't quite right, don't we? And I think if we see enough of those things that are not quite right, we can get very upset. Why don't we see some things that are right, that do please us? Let's do that. So that's the first little tip I want to put on the table for you today. Second of all, and I'm saying this for me more than even for you, do carry your business cards or calling card or something. Have something printed up that certainly has your phone number and your email on it, because, or just your email. I think that's important so that you can hand that to people that you want to connect with. Now, all the cards you hand out will not come back to you in some way, shape, or form as a connection, but it is a nicety that I think we should do. I say I'm saying that for me because I'm so busy sometimes putting myself together because I work till the last minute, or I'm putting together food that I'm taking to a party or something. Sometimes I forget. Don't be like Martha. Be sure and put them in your purse or in your pocket. Okay, and make sure they're updated too. Another tip about being a friend, having friends, making friends, is listening to the other person. Don't feel you have to talk so much. And ask pertinent questions. Really listen. Now, I learned such an important lesson years ago. I was young, and I had not yet made this mistake. It was nice to get. It was nice to get this lesson before I'd actually made the mistake and embarrassed myself, right? I had some early days. I was in radio, just like I am now, only this was in radio. And when I first got there and was going to be doing interviews from time to time, this very wise man said the most important thing you can do is listen to what people are saying. He said, don't be so locked in to your own agenda. For example, if you're interviewing an author, you have read the book and you want to show that you've read the book, right? And all that stuff that we sometimes do. We want to show ourselves smart. And we have our own agenda, and we miss what they're saying because we're in our own stuff. That was some of the best advice I ever got. But it actually goes, I'm so glad that you, hi, Janos. I'm not your mommy, but there we are. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am your mommy. I know who you are. It's so good for you to be listening. I'm so glad you are. Hello, Janos. Thank you. Thank you, my sweet girl. Okay. So one of the things I want to say to you is I'm still on the interview, but I'm going to bring it into our friendships in just a minute. Sometimes we can be interviewing someone and we're on their book and they say something like, yes, I was raised in a family of 18 children and blah, 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 blah. And a bad interviewer is going to say, in chapter 3, you said, instead of going, 18 children, what was that about? So my point to even saying this to you is, do listen to what people are saying. They're giving you a clue about what questions to ask, how to respond, and I think that's a really important thing. And I am always grateful for the man whose name escapes me, quite frankly, now, that gave me that tip early in my career. You just can't pre-decide a dynamic conversation. You all understand that? This has to be kind of an improvisation. And there is, and I want to say, a little vulnerability that goes with it, because you're just standing there being you, and you're listening, and the gates are wide about how to respond. Hello, darling. How wonderful. And you're right, Lisa. Listening is one of the most loving things in the world that you can do. I've noticed for years, and Beth, I'm so glad you're tuning in. I've noticed for years that the best friends that you have are not the ones that tell you what to do. I learned this a while back when I was sharing something with a friend, and immediately the friend goes, "You know what you should do? You should do this. You should immediately get her to so-and-so. We should call about this and that." And it's like sometimes, absolutely the most loving thing to do is to listen and then to say, and here's the key that all of us want to hear. You know what it is? Darling, you'll figure it out. I know you, and you will figure it out. Just listen to that good heart of yours, and you'll be fine. Isn't that a lovely thing to say to someone? I think so. I think sometimes we're reared in families that have to fix things to be loving, and sometimes they don't need fixing. In fact, I like to pretty much figure out what I'm going to do myself. Yeah, listen and understand. Don't reply. Thank you, Lisa. I want to put another point on the table, and that is, let's say you're at a party, okay? Do you know you don't have to know anyone to have a good time? And we're going to talk a bit about that and how you can have a good time at a party without knowing anyone. I do want to say right now, however, it is about the premise you believe going into this function. All right? I need you to know that you are likable and that you are just fine the way you are, and that you don't have to do anything or say anything and nothing is required of you. I need you to know that you're there because you're supposed to be there. That's it. You don't really have to understand it. You're just supposed to be there. You're there. All right? And I also need for you to know that this room full of people want to get along with you. They want to like you. You know why? Number one, that's everybody's nature. Thank you, too. Number two, everybody's nature is like that unless they've been really hurt in their childhood. And number two, everybody, it feels better for everybody to get along, doesn't it? You know that for sure. When you don't get along with somebody, it feels bad. When you get along with somebody, it feels good. So you've got to realize that when you walk into a setting where you don't know anybody, your premise needs to be, everybody wants to like me just like I want to like everybody else. We all want to get along. I think that those things, those points that I just made, are extremely important. They're extremely important to walk in with. It's, excuse me for spinning off into something a little related, but not quite. And you know, I've taught actors for years, business people, actors, but I want to talk about actors for a minute, because actors have to go in and they have to audition. And as an auditioner, I'm going to tell you right now, we want to hire you. We want you to be the one. We'd give anything. We're hungry, we're tired, we want you to be the one. We want it. We're actually on the actor's side. But how many actors go into a situation like that and they're scared to death and they're thinking of nothing but themselves, and they're not thinking of our long day, right? They're not thinking that they're going to show what they've got, and that we're on the same page, and we'll either be on the same page to agree that they are the one we're going to hire, or to disagree that that's not exactly it. I walked into an audition one time. I was auditioning to be Clint Eastwood's wife. Clint Eastwood is a beanpole and very, very tall. I'm like 4'10" and a half, or by the way, I was. We will not be talking about that this show. Anyway, I walked in, and before I even read for the auditioner, they went, "Oh, no, 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 no." And I said, I'm wondering why I'm here too, because I would not hire me either as Clint Eastwood's wife. It was very funny. But anyway, guys, what my point of this is that you need to know everybody's on the same side when you walk in, and that there's nothing wrong with you. And everybody tends to be anxious. They may know some people, but if you listen, if you care, if you're just let yourself be vulnerable, why not? You'll have quite a good experience there. Because there's one thing that unites us all. You know what it is? We're all human. And we all have those things that humans do, like being vulnerable, like feeling that, feeling a little anxious. We all have that. Why isn't that all right? The answer is, it is. Okay, now, moving along. Yes, dear. Okay, my husband has come up here, and he is looking for something, even as we speak. I don't know what. He says, continue, however. So, word from on high, I continue. The next point I want to make is for you to be realistic, however. Everybody at any party is not going to be your best buddy. So I had a dear friend tell me the other day, I want everybody to like me. Well, everybody can like you, but everybody isn't going to be your dearest bosom buddy. It's just true. And you've got to understand that everybody already does like you, but there are people that you're going to have more in common with than others. Let's be realistic about this. Let's not go and walk into a party and expect everybody to just fall at your feet, And solid, good friendships, which is what the show is about today. Meeting people for the first time and allowing them to be, to come and go and be what they are is one thing. But there'll be some solid, good friendships in here too, and we want to talk about those because those solid, good friendships are the things that sustain us through the years. They're very important to have. Science says they help us live longer. We're happier people if we have them. So those are very, very important. Now, we've just talked about being realistic, that certain people are going to be gravitating to certain people. All right, the other thing I want to put on the table is it's important to be emotionally consistent with your friends. I see this sometimes in partnerships where it's like when a friend, when somebody partners with someone, they think now that they can unburden themselves emotionally on the partner. I have other people that I've seen that do that with friendships. They can unburden themselves on a friendship. That's absolutely not true. We have to handle our own stuff, guys. And just because we have a really close friend or a good partnership, we can say some of all of that, certainly. And the dearer the friend, the more of us that they can accept. But not on a consistent basis. All of us feel good most of the time. They feel bad sometimes, okay? And it's nice to have a friend to talk that over with. But when that becomes moodiness, when that becomes inconsistency emotionally, all of a sudden you become, or they become for you, unsafe. What I want to say and put on the table right now is the very best friendships and the very best partnerships, I hope that your partners are friends first, of course, are safe. They're safe for you. And so you want to be able to share things with someone, but you also need to handle your own stuff. Otherwise, it becomes unsafe for the partner, doesn't it? If they don't know what kind, or it becomes unsafe for you, if you don't know what kind of mood you're walking into and what you're going to have to handle every single solitary day, it becomes very hard to sustain a friendship. We are indeed responsible for ourselves. Okay. Now, I want to also say another point is we do need to work on ourselves. So for this reason, that whatever we are is what we attract. So negativity, somebody that grouches all the time. Hello, Chris. Good morning. Somebody that grouches all the time. Oh, well, thank you, Janosch. It's wonderful to hear that. It's really important for you to realize that what you are is what you're attracting. So if we're emotionally inconsistent and we attract emotionally inconsistent person, it really does mean that we need to work on ourselves so that we're a little more emotionally consistent, right? If we are always negative, we're going to attract people that are negative and that grouch as much as we do. And we're going to take great joy in that. Here's why. It validates us. And we all like to be validated. But let me tell you, validation is something the kid in you needs, that ego child's mind, because sometimes we need somebody to challenge us and tell us the truth. Those are your best friends, particularly the ones that do it in love and say, darling, you know, all day long you've been grouching and negative, and we need to go, you know what? I didn't even realize it. Indeed, I am. Thank you so much for telling me. That's very important. We don't want you to attract friendships that support issues, right? We want you to attract friendships that together you all can open your minds and go forward and discover new things about yourselves and your world and each other, by the way. Okay. So fear attracts fear, awkwardness attracts awkwardness, and where it all starts is you and what you are changing about you. Why not, instead of gravitating to the person that you know won't reject you, why not find the most interesting person in the room and go over and say, without a doubt, to me, you're the most interesting person in the room. Who are you? Tell me about you. Now, if you are telling yourself that you don't have anything to offer to this person, or they wouldn't want to interact with you, then I think that is a marvelous thing for you to realize about yourself, that you've got to do a little work on yourself. That's all. That's all it means. We got to boost that self-esteem, because there isn't one person born into this world that doesn't have something interesting to say and a new spin on everything. It's not one. And your voice should be added. Your intelligence, your intuition, your mind should be added to the mix. It helps if it's the higher mind and not the lower mind, because we've got a world filled with the lower mind right now, do we not? It's totally wacky what people are saying and thinking and doing. You have to watch which mind you're in, and you even have to watch the organizations that you become part of. Not that organizations are not good, they are, but I have seen for years, I coached a woman who was with one of the organizational groups. She was very green, you know, and this was when she was quite young. She's very different now, but man, she was angry. She had her fist in the air. She used that platform, the organization's platform, and I kept saying, look, if you are that angry when you are giving your speech, it's going to turn people off. It's not going to bring them in. We don't want to be fussed at. We want to learn some new things, you know? And luckily she got the point. And I said, you know, eventually organizations that are that have a lot of angry people in them are not going to do real well. They're going to take themselves down, unfortunately. So make sure that, as you're joining some things, that they are not supporting the negative parts of you, the parts of you that you should be growing past anyway. We'll talk more about that later. Now, another point is knowing yourself enough to know that even if you make a sincere foray into friendships with someone, we must clean it up. Because you may really like someone, but you also may really like them because you want to be dependent on them, for example. I want to put on the table, as we're talking today, that there's a world of difference between attachment and connection, true connection. And I want to talk about that for a minute. The egoic child's mind is the dependent part of you, the part of you that wants to attach to someone, so you'll have a person to talk to and you won't feel so alone and uncomfortable. But I want you to realize that's a ego a part of the mind. It is a very, what do I want to say, a very self-indulgent part of us, self-focused part of us. There's a desperation energy to attachment, no matter how charming it seems on the exterior. And many of these people are very charming on the outside, right? We have to be charming on the outside to lure people in so we can be attached to them. But I want you to know it really can't be hidden very long from people that are looking. So you really want to realize, wait a minute, I'm really trying to attach and really not trying to connect on the deepest level of me, where I'm vulnerable and so is the other person. Desperation and dependence are all about the person feeling them. They're about that self, not the global self. You remember that when we talk about the higher mind, it's always about you and me creating a win-win together to agree or to disagree. We're making an agreement to agree or to disagree, and everything is fine, right? But it is the ego child's mind part of us where it's all about me, and how I feel, really at the expense of you, or it's all about you, at the expense of me, which is still all about me because all of a sudden I've made myself a victim, and that's going to come to roost one day, and I'm going to feel victimized, you see? It isn't the true reaching out to another person, because there's self-involvement and self-absorption at the core of the ego child's mind experience. There's a certain clinginess there too, because after all, dependence is present. We don't know, if we are dependent, that we can handle things on our own, can't we? And with our network of friends and with our good minds about who to call next. Guys, I'm not saying we need to know everything. We just need to know who to call, right? To fix whatever's broken, darlings. We don't have to be dependent. We can know that we're perfectly capable of handling it all. And when clinginess is not always seen in the beginning of a friendship, of course. As you move into the friendship a little more, that's when you see it. That's when you go, that's a good. Watch for it. It is the ego experience, and it makes having lasting and true friendships very, very difficult. Now I want to talk about true connection, because it's something quite different. And I want you all to explore the possibilities of connection instead of the other, of attachment. it's a shame to miss the opportunity to connect with someone. And when we go home from a function or from an interaction or something, without having explored connection, oftentimes, I do want to say, we go home disappointed. We go home depressed because we have acted opposite of our natures. Now, I want to say, I'm all for acknowledging that social interactions can be very, what do I want to say, awkward and anxiety producing sometimes. It's because of the mind you're in, the child's mind. I do understand that. But your true nature, that's the nature you've learned to take on in your childhood. Your true nature is love and generosity and contribution and giving and listening and truly connecting. So we are always disappointed in what happened and in our environment when we don't use the part of us that is of the higher mind. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that's who you are. That's who you are. That's who you are. I say we need to just put our insecurity, we all have it, in a box, and put it on the shelf, and go and love instead, and see what you get out of that. Okay? To find out if there's a true connection worth exploring, you are going to have to relax and be yourself. You're going to have to free yourself to really listen and talk about a lot of subjects, and all the while have the attitude that you truly wish the other person well, whether they stay or go. Otherwise, it's control. That's definitely the lower mind. That's definitely the egoic child's mind. Wants to hold on to everybody. May not be another one, right? They can stay or go, but you're going to love them. What a wonderful experience that is. And that's the beginning of true connection. I want you to know, however, that true connection really can't be rushed. It can't be pushed. And for heaven's sakes, don't use something as lovely as sex as leverage. And a lot of people do. When anybody rushes intimacy, I want to say that they are saying loudly and clearly that they can't be intimate. That's absolutely the truth. You don't rush something like that. You have to learn to trust yourself and other people over time. It's not a question of rushing to sustain intimacy. And many people use sex, for example, as a manipulation to hook someone into caring about them because they don't feel that they can be cared about without a trick. Now, I'm not going to belabor this point. I want to say I absolutely know the climate out there right now. And I always hear from young people, well, you're just old, you don't know what it's like out there now. Everybody hooks up with everybody. I was talking to someone several years ago, and she said she just met somebody and had a perfectly marvelous time. Of course, they hooked up. And I said, great, what's his last name? I don't know. Does he have a car? I don't know. Does he have a job? I don't know. Come on, guys. Now, here's what I'm putting on the table and what I'm here to tell you. The same principles apply now that used to apply whenever then was about creating a lasting and sustainable relationship through the years. Those rules have not changed. And it isn't rushing into bed with someone without knowing them and without knowing their last name. So just want to put that on the table. The same rules apply to that. Now, if you're just hooking up, have fun, just be safe and healthy. But for God's sake, if you're trying to sustain something else, trying to create something else, that's not the way to do it. Okay. Next, I need you to know that you're enough. I need you to know that you're enough. If you are enough, you can relax at a party. You can relax at a social interaction. You'll just be yourself, and you'll either connect with people or you won't. Can you see how the desperation, I've got to connect, is about you're not enough? Right? But what will be nice, whether you connect or not, is that you say yes to all the possibilities. I had a lunch with someone the other day that I didn't know. And she and I were just saying yes to all the possibilities. And it turned out to be just the loveliest lunch. We could have said no at any time, but we said yes first to explore. And I suggest that you do too. Now, the next thing that I want to put on the table is if you are attracting people that you don't like very much, you need to do some work on yourself. We all, at one point or another, need to know who we are, need to be at peace with who we are. We need to be our own advocates. Not that we have to go around defending ourselves. We have to occasionally explain ourselves, right? We have to give to ourselves and others generously. And we have to take care of ourselves at the end of the day so we can get up and do it all over again tomorrow. I want to say to you, our parents didn't know how to give us these things. They struggled with these things themselves. So I'm going to tell you now, you have to learn it for yourself as an adult. You just do. We all do. Another point. There are givers in this world and there are takers, and I want to talk about that. The best relationships I've ever seen, whether it be intimate relationships or great friendships, both of the people are givers. Both of the people are strong givers. But the givers must be giving for the right reasons, or you've got a taker in sheep's clothing. You understand? Okay. A taker wants to look good and is doing whatever they're doing to that end. A taker wants attention. A taker wants to be liked and approved of at the expense of his long-term self-respect. You understand that? Because if you're taking all the time and playing this game, you're sacrificing your self-respect. You're trying to attach to people instead of actually generously and truly liking them and wanting to give. This is never going to work out for takers. They will always reveal themselves for anybody who's looking. Because the taker is motivated by the egoic child's mind, not by the higher self-loving mind. You understand? It's all about the taker. He feels that he was deprived in some way, that he is not enough, that because he is not enough, never do is enough. So therefore, nothing is ever enough. He's generalized it, you see, to even more. So he must grasp and take all he can. And nobody's looking out for him, except for him. This is really different in the thinking process and the feeling process from a giver. A giver who is motivated from the highest self of love and service plunges in there with the attitude of, if it's in my hologram, if it's in my field of vision, it's there for me to deal with. For example, if it's a dirty, unwashed glass on the sink that your partner has not put in the dishwasher, who cares who put it there? You're looking at it. It's about you taking that glass and doing something with it, you see? The giver rolls up his or her sleeves and does whatever is needed if it falls to him, and even if it doesn't. And I'm using the masculine here throughout this talk only because it means humankind. I'm not certainly implying a gender ever. And they're going to roll up their sleeves and do something if it falls to them, and even if it doesn't, because it's their nature to be of service and to contribute in small and big ways. And this interesting thing about the giver is there are no complaints, there's no grouching. They're just contributing and helping and have a good attitude about it. Service and contribution, I want to say, are lovely words to the giver. So if you are reacting to either one of those words, it's your ego child's mind at play. I want you to know it. And they're happier people, givers, because they're working in full cooperation with the higher self, which is this loving God mind of ours. It sure is a lot more fun to live with a giver than a taker. Now, I'm not saying that we all don't have our times of going back and forth, but you'll be happier in the long run with a giver and being a giver. So I want you to go through life, especially as you're meeting new people, with your eyes wide open. If you are a taker, and you recognize this, you're not going to attract a giver. You have to turn yourself into a giver first. You're going to attract, by the way, if you are, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of tea. If you are a taker, you're going to attract a self-sacrificer. And this is a problem because self-sacrifice is an issue. It's an issue. A self-sacrificer will give. That's true. But they give and give and give and give past the appropriate point. They're giving for the wrong reasons. You see, they want approval, attention. They give to give themselves a value. It's still, notice, all about them. They give to make you feel obligated. They give because they may want something. They know they'll need something back one day because they're not whole. They're immature in their minds. And when that time comes and you don't give it to them the way they want it, wow, they're going to turn on you. They're going to be angry. The self-sacrificer will turn on you, rage at you, and resent you, sometimes for the rest of their lives. They never realize that they've done this to themselves. You get it? Okay. Hang on, I'm just checking my time here. Good. If you're in a relationship with a self-sacrificer, you will not get them to stop. You can't tell. You can tell them to stop, by the way, but and that you can tell them everything that we're saying right now. That you want them to stop. That they should observe their point. That one day they will be angry at you, but they won't stop. The reason is they're compelled to do what they're doing because they're insecure and emotionally immature. Do you understand? Hello, Denise. So glad you've tuned in. We all have to grow ourselves up, ladies and gentlemen. And someone else cannot do it for us. We all have to deal with our own feelings. Now, I'm going to take you in a little different direction with this story, but it all has to do with we have to deal with our own feelings. To wrap up what I just said, a self-sacrificer needs to realize that their giving is adulterated. What's in the mix, too, is altruism and purity and goodness, I'm sure, because we all have that, right? But it's adulterated. Let's get out the adulteration. That's all work on you is going to do, is get out the adulteration so that you can have pure energies of caring and love and service and contribution. Now, here's a story. A business asked me to come in and coach a man years ago. He was dear. I want to say he was in his 30s, as I recall. During the first session with him, he was not forthcoming. By the second session, he told me what was bothering him. His wife of many years had been having an affair. She had had it for 2 solid years behind his back. And he just had found out about it in the last month. He had 2 little kids whom he was doing everything for, because when the affair came to light, his wife took to her bed and refused to get out of it. Refused. It was a really bad situation for him. So, on session 3, I started out the session saying, what's your morning been like today? And he proceeded to tell me that he had gotten up, he had made coffee, he had taken a cup of coffee into his wife, and then he had gotten the boys dressed, off to school, and then he got in the car and came to work. Well, I stopped him. And I said, you made coffee for your wife? And took it to her in bed? And he said, oh, yes. I've been doing that this entire time we're married. And I said, why? Why are you doing that? And he said, oh, well, my wife has never been an early riser. If I'm going to have coffee at all, I have to make it. And I said, I get that, but you took a coffee cup into her. And he said, oh, yes, but, you know, it's just the way we have always done things, blah, 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 blah. A lot of excuses. And I said, and I tried to be kind about this, but this man wasn't getting it. I said, but your wife has been having an affair on you behind your back and betrayed you for 2 solid years. You cannot tell me that every morning you have the purest love for her and want to make this coffee and take it into her because you love her. You can't tell me that. So why are you taking the coffee into her? Still. And he looked like, God bless him, he looked like I'd struck him. And he got real quiet. And when he looked up, he had tears in his eyes, and he said, because I want her to love me. Okay, now there are 2 points that I want to make to this story. The first point is that we had to find out why he had this tendency to be so enormously self-sacrificial to his detriment. We had to point out he was really showing his children something that he didn't want to show them. And that was a real important first thing. Why was he doing this based on his early childhood home? Well, believe it or not, his father did the exact same thing. They had the exact same situation. So this was the only template he had to follow, right? But there was a second point too, and that is, by doing that, he is denying how he really feels. When he is hurt and upset and angry about his wife, man, let me tell you, that coffee that he is taking her is as toxic a brew as anything you could drink. He has to be honest about his feelings. He had to grow up. So we talked about this and what he was willing to do and what honored him and what gave him room to find out how he felt about things. And he said, finally, this is what we said, why don't we say this to his wife? I have been making you coffee all these years as an expression of my love for you, but when you had the affair and it came to light this last month, I've been bringing you coffee because I haven't been thinking. I've just been not wanting to admit how I felt. And number two, I've been doing it because I've wanted you to love me. And I realize you aren't going to love me because I bring you coffee every morning. You haven't. So I need to stop. So here is what I'll do. I'm going to make coffee for myself every morning. There'll be coffee in the pot if you want it. You're going to have to get out of bed and get it if you want it, because I don't want to bring it to you anymore. Oh, thank you, darling Beth. I appreciate it. I will either do that or I will get my coffee at Starbucks. And in some future time, if we make this work with each other in spite of what has happened, and I do bring you coffee, you will know that I don't want anything from you. I just want to express my love for you. That's when it'll be good coffee. That's honest, guys. That's honest. That's mature. Self-sacrifice isn't, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It really doesn't. So, with that said, I want to go to next, just how to meet people. I think that, psychology tells us we've got to have a good support system. Many people don't. Let's talk about how to get one if you've never created one before. I do want you to know that throughout our lives, if we're doing it right, we should be changing. In that change, some of our friendships stay and grow with us, and some of our friendships drop away. It's part of preserving our love for people when we allow in love friendships to drop away. Because if we stay there and we hammer at them and we try to change them, or they try to change us, or we betray ourselves by crossing our own boundaries because we aren't there anymore, dears. Hi. Oh, Pat, that would be great. Pat's just offered to buy me a beer. Oh, you're the sweetest man in the world. Thank you, dear. That's so cute. Great to talk with you too, sweetheart. So, I want you all to realize, certainly, that it is extremely important to let friendships go in love that need to go. If you're doing it all right, new friendships are coming in all the time. So, for heaven's sakes, dears, don't be afraid to grow and evolve. If the child in you is trying to hold on to something, you got to do some work and allow that child to know it's safe and let go, because you're an adult now, you see how it all works, and you are perfectly capable of making new and wonderful friendships for yourselves all over again. I actually think all of this is part of the reinvention of self. And I think that we should reinvent ourselves a lot in our lives. Shows that we are moving, okay? Now, I'm new to an area up here, and I wanted to just give you some ideas of how you might go about meeting new people. First of all, there are new people everywhere. If you're in a small town like I am right now, you can certainly meet them at a grocery store. I've made some friends at grocery stores, believe it or not. There are things on the internet called meetup groups. Look at meetup.com. You'll find some interests that you like. Go to some of these meetup groups. There are parties that you'll be invited to. Don't say no. Go to them, okay? There are organizations that you should become a member of. Now, some of these organizations are quite large. I want to put something on the table. And I say whether it's organizations or whether it's churches or whatever that you go to, you need to pare down that big group to smaller groups. I know that when I joined a new church years ago, I didn't begin to start meeting people. I saw acquaintances there. I said hi every Sunday morning, but I didn't really meet anybody until I got into some classes and then met some people that were a smaller group of people and then said, let's go have lunch, right? That kind of thing, whether it is an organization, volunteer for something. Volunteer to do a marvelous directory of people so you can talk to them and meet them and get to know them, right? Volunteer, get to know people on a more profound and more intimate level than a huge organization. You're just not going to meet the people you want to meet in 500 people, but you will if you take a little task on here or there to do things like social director or this or that, and everybody needs help. You can certainly take classes that you're interested in, and you can go to neighborhood socials or do anything like that. Here's something else I think is important. For God's sake, don't be afraid to start your own. Have one. If you don't know your neighbors, have a few people over for a little small wine and cheese tasting or something. I was talking to someone not long ago, several years ago, and she was dating this lovely man she met online, and he was busy all the time, and she didn't know. She knew what he did, of course. He worked for a university, but she didn't know any of these people. So I said to her, for heaven's sakes, at the holidays, why don't you send an invitation out to all his staff and have them over with their wives and have a nice holiday party for them to thank them for a lovely year. And she said, well, I don't know these people. And I said, that's the point. Do it. Extend yourself. Do something nice for other people. They'll know you at the end of this. You see? You know what? She was not a client. I don't think she ever did. It's a shame. All right. Now, I went to a function the other day, and I want to tell you, I went to 2 functions the other day, so I've got some tips on my mind to share with you. All right? So here was what happened. I was going to a party with about 500 plus people. It's in this enormous pavilion. And I didn't know anybody. My husband was going with me, and we needed to meet some people. So I went to the store, and I found a very, very cute purse. It was a purse that's shaped like a cigar box, and it has little, it sounds tacky, but actually it's really quite cute. It had a little beading on the front, and there are 3 dogs looking at you. Okay, really cute, really unusual, and little leather flowers all over it. Okay. So I bought that purse and I took it. Now, a lot of people, right? 500 plus people, and I'm carrying it around. Who's going to see it? Not many people. All right. And I'm, by the way, very small. So if I've got it down, where you usually carry purses, nobody's going to look down like that and see it. So the other thing that was really important was where I located my husband and me. I chose a strategic table. Now there was a big line up over there of buffet style, right? So you have to think of where the line would be formed. So I thought, well, the line's going to snake around right behind this table. I don't want to be on that side because everybody's going to be looking at the food. I want to be on this side where people are looking around and talking to their friends, and then it's going to snake around and be in the buffet line. They're going to be right behind me. So I chose the furthest most chair at this table. I put my bag right at my place, and I sat there, and I did not get in line. And sure enough, as people went by, they said, "My gosh, that's the cutest purse. Where did you find it? Who are you? What's your name? What is your name? Well, this is great. You like this kind of, oh, this is wonderful." Man, I must have gone, look at you guys talking to each other. I must have gone through 50 or 60 business cards, guys. That's a great way to meet people. When you get their cards, you follow up. You call them. You say, "Let's have lunch. Let's go do this. Let's go for a walk." And that's how to meet people. Another tip. So I went to a neighborhood party. Now, I didn't know any of my neighbors. Didn't know any of them, right? And it's a potluck, so everybody's bringing something. I brought a great big old salad, put it down, and I looked at this party and all the little groups that were already formed, and everybody knew each other but me. So what did I do? And I suggest this for you. For God's sake, pass the hors d'oeuvres. Don't wait for somebody to ask you to pass the hors d'oeuvres. Just go pick up something that looks yummy. It's a great excuse. You can go into every group with a perfect excuse to pass the hors d'oeuvres. You can say, "Hello, my name is so-and-so. Who are you?" You see? And that's a really good way to meet people as well. Don't hang back, guys. See what needs to be done. Jump in there. Do that. Okay? I'm going to tell you that anybody that listens to this show is likable, is dear, who, if they want to do this, they want to be liked and loved, they want to like and love. All of you. I know that about you. I know many of you. Now, for heaven's sakes, put your anxieties aside. Go and do something for people. Go and talk to them. Go and be vulnerable. Go tell them stories from your backgrounds. Go and contribute. Every one of you really are. And you're going to feel a lot better if you act on it. Now, next week, we are going to be talking about love languages. I'm hoping that in that talk, you're going to see how to use that program even more. And again, everything is in the light of consciousness, because that's what we're talking about here. And, we have a phone call. I think this is from our friend Jay, too, and we hadn't talked to him in ages. Let's go there first. Jay, is that you?
Yes, it is. It's good to talk to you again. I can hardly hear your cell phone's going in and out. Sorry.
Oh, no, my cell phone's going in and out. I hate that. I just switched cell phones, too, trying to prevent that. So if we're having problems with that again, my deep apologies. How are you? I haven't talked to you in ages.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. So, yeah, it's really been interesting, meeting friends and things like that. I don't have any long-term friends.
Uh-huh.
So it's been, my long-term friend actually passed away about a couple months ago. So, but,
Jay, I
I
hadn't
think
heard
meeting
from
new
you
friends in a spiritual community
yeah,
is
that's great.
way different from, I think, regular friends.
Well, I think that, spiritual community friends can certainly be regular friends in the end. I'm sorry you've lost your friends. I'm sorry. This has been an odd year for that. I've lost about 3 people, too. And it throws you for a loop. It does. Darling, what's been going on in your life, Jay?
For me, I've been going to basically meeting people like grief groups right now, and I'm doing all sorts of things like that. So it's going to be a very busy fall for myself because, I'll be going to some grief study groups and doing grief for yoga. So.
Well, that's wonderful, darling. Is it helping?
Well, I won't be starting the yoga till September, so definitely the grief groups are definitely helping, yes.
That's wonderful. I'm awfully sorry that this happened. Is this is somebody in your family that passed?
Pardon me?
Is this someone in your family that passed?
Yeah, my mother passed away in April.
Oh, okay. That's what it is then. I'm sorry, Jay. I didn't know that. I'm very sorry about that. Are you, what are you doing for yourself right now other than the grief group?
Not too much, actually. So maybe just writing poetry about grief and like that, so.
And trying to work through your feelings. And I know you had a very complicated situation. Darling, I'm very sorry about that. I should have known it was something like that when I didn't hear from you for a long time. So my apologies for not being in touch. I was dealing with my own thing over here, as a matter of fact. So
Yes.
it's bad. I hear people that are my age, certainly not your age, my darling, saying, well, it's to be expected. But you know what? I don't want to be there. I don't want to expect it. I don't. I'm just going to live my life and hope for the best with everybody and be surprised when something happens, But, I'll also say one other thing about grief, and then we'll move on. But something happened a number of years ago up here where I am. I directed the theater for many years, and one of my girlfriends who worked behind the scenes in the theater, she was married to one of the actors I did work with and certainly direct when I directed, went back home. They lived in New Hampshire. And she dropped her husband off the following week at his theater, and she went to the beach with her dog. And later, they found her dead on the beach, and they rounded up the dog, not knowing what exactly had happened. These were 2 different things, and they put him in the pound. When the family went to pick him up, he had a great injury on his head. They did catch the man who killed her. Apparently, the dog ran up to the stranger, and he hit the dog. And she, being the good dog mother that she was, would do the same thing that a lot of us would do, which is, don't you dare do that to my dog. And she probably berated him, knowing my girlfriend. He went back to his car, got a shotgun, and shot her in the face. It was devastating. And I will never forget the phone call that came to me about this. Her husband's grandmother called me to tell me. And she was sad, very sad, of course, but very centered in her sadness. And I remember saying to her, you have such an incredible demeanor in telling me this absolutely horrific thing. How do you do that? And she said to me, well, you live a long time, you see a lot of things, and you know the way it works. Now, I didn't know what she meant by that, but I always remembered it, and this was many years ago. This was like, I want to say 40 years ago, maybe more. I understand what she means now, because the more solid we are in the work we do together to love, to contribute, to do the best we can in life, the more we are at peace with the coming and going that is part of this life. So I want to put that on the table for all of you. Thank you, Lisa, for saying that. I want to put that on the table for all of you. Guys, I love you so much. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop with just feeling better. Really do the work seriously. Keep going, because it's going to give you that kind of peace that comes with a larger understanding of how life and love and interactions with people work. And we're all happier if we can hold that inside of us, because that's the unchanging part, this love of God that we all are, quite frankly. That's the emotional stability there in the end. Jay, I'm awfully sorry for your news, but thank you, as always, for the ability to talk about this on the air. I appreciate it with all my heart.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right, darling. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back next Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, doing this all over again with another show. We're going to be talking about love languages, and again, that's not my program, but certainly my program is how to deal with it in a specific and conscious way. So I want to talk about relationships in addition, and in a specific area that we really do need to I have totally lost control, which is, by the way, just fine. I'm laughing right now for those of you that are listening on the radio, because my friends are all talking to each other now on Facebook Live, saying hello to everybody. And that just delights me. You guys, that's so cute. Thank you so much for listening. And let's do a quick prayer to close this out, and then we'll move into our week. My dears, have a wonderful week, and thank you so much for supporting the show and listening. It means the world to us. If you will be kind enough to follow us and share us, send it to everybody, the shows to everyone you know, and get the word out about us, it would mean a lot. I think there's even something on Blog Talk Radio, if I'm not mistaken, where you can post a show that you like and to your social media account. That'd be great if you will do that for us. We'd really appreciate it. All right, let's do. Oh, and I forgot one other thing, and that is, please go to our website. It's now been updated. Yay. I don't think everything is on there yet. You're going to have a whole lot of new merchandise sold for very cheap prices, like 99 cents and things like that, on www.marthaburgessnovak.net. We are .net, not a .com. Please do check us out. And we have a new app that's 99 cents on the App Store, and that's just fabulous. So this is very exciting, and we are thrilled about it. So, thank you so much for listening. Let's do our prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, all everything is in this world, we are enormously grateful. Thank you so much as we open ourselves to move on anything we've heard, to be aware. Even if we don't change, to know what we're doing and give ourselves the peace and the mercy to be human in our lives. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this, knowing that change and growth and opportunity is certainly inevitable. And we open ourselves to saying yes to all the possibilities out there, knowing that we can say no afterwards. But we say yes right now. We ask without any hesitation for our most loving selves to appear more in the world, that I fear may be subdued, that we may indeed realize it's there and honor ourselves by looking at it when it's time. But knowing that love is our true nature, not fear, we ask that we open to more experiences where that may be present in our lives as our experience. We thank you so much, dear God. We say this prayer, knowing these things are fully so, in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show today. We thank you with all our hearts. It's a great world. Show us that it is by our open minds. And so it is. Amen. Guys, have a wonderful, wonderful week. See you next week. Bye-bye.